The Princess and the Human, Book 2, Chapter 22, Verdicts. 86th day after my arrival. Dear Diary, it's been a while since I last wrote. To be honest, it's hard to wrap my head around how much time has passed since then. When I looked at the number on my last entry, I needed to ask Mahita to check the date for me because I was convinced there had to be a mistake. But no, it has indeed been an entire month. More than that, when considering the longer days here. How can an entire month with nothing? No, Syl isn't in the palace today. Neither are the siblings. They're accompanying her. I was offered to come as well, but I refused. The two seemed rather disappointed that I didn't come with them. A bit strange. I don't feel like we're that close yet. Or am I reading the signs wrong? Maybe Veneri nobility is just... No. Either way, I just couldn't bring myself to go. They're holding the trial for all the spies who worked for Keitler's goon and who got caught during the crackdown. Since it involved a foreign power, Syl once again has to be the judge. It's strange that Veneri don't have dedicated judges. A verdict can be made by any noble who is of higher rank than the involved parties, unless that's impossible. Well, I guess all nobles have to know the law. Still, it seems strange, but maybe that's because I'm only seeing court cases in the highest order here. Going by what Syl told me, it's mostly a formality this time, and the result is more or less decided already. They're all charged with treason, and Veneri law doesn't seem to know any extenuating circumstances for that. Not even if they acted under threat. In other words, there isn't any scenario where this won't end in mass execution. I know she's just doing her job. Syl doesn't make the rules yet, but being right there when she does it, I just can't. I wonder if they'd do it differently if it weren't only commoners who know. But for the two, this probably is great. They're being publicly seen with the princess, which is should be something good, I assume. I guess I never really know. Maybe I have a too narrow view on... No. Well, my personal bias aside, they deserve it. I don't know how much of an outlier they are compared to other noble children, but if this ends up causing a stir, But after helping oversee them, I don't think they are like what I heard about most. The highest rank seems to have those the translator translates as Duke. It sounds like they can cause a lot of trouble for Syl if they don't see eye to eye with her. That's also the title Raccoon will inherit if I remember correctly. Wouldn't that mean that he could end up being a powerful ally to her? Well, not like anyone seems to believe that at the moment. I really need to start looking into some of my newer ideas. For example, the translator reads intent. Shouldn't that be compatible with some form of speech-to-text? I really need to talk with some experts, not just because of that, but after Syl's scratch that. If I were to stay on this planet, training alone probably couldn't compensate for the lower gravity. Maybe the effects of my body are already irreversible. Scratch that. Maybe I should have done that sooner. They have artificial gravity tech, so this should be doable, right? Speaking of Syl, also said that I should be getting a ship, crew, and everything. With it, maybe I could go by myself and look for... Scratch that. I still don't know how to feel about this whole award ceremony. While everyone was gone, I spent most of the day trying to draw our crest as detailed as possible. They don't have colored pencils here, so it was a bit tricky. I hope it'll look good in the end. Funny, I never really cared much about it outside of thinking that it was cool that we had it. But now... Update. Still the 86th day after my arrival. Dear Diary, it happened. Mahita told me that I just got a message. Syl's uncle is apparently on the way back and sent one fast ship ahead. They just left the hyperlane and will be here tomorrow, much quicker than expected. With the info they bring, we'll finally be able to send an expedition force on their way. I hope they already found something. Scratch that. Now that I think about it, I haven't heard from Doc in a while. I wonder if she's found anything new. Over the course of the last couple days, Williamson's view of the princess had shifted a bit. She was, of course, still a figure that demanded respect, but the more time she had spent in close proximity to her, the more she realized that Her Highness wasn't someone she needed to fear without reason. She wouldn't be able to properly put it into words if asked, but while her respect had only grown, the Sulpine heiress no longer felt as intimidated in her presence as she used to. Today the princess had taken her and her brother with her for a mass trial. Philippine had heard about these spies before during the trial of the ambassador, even if that hadn't been part of the section she and Raccoon had watched over and over. But the situation had turned out to be vastly different than she had expected. The people on trial didn't act at all like she had expected traitors to be. Some had tried to talk their way out of it despite the evidence, some pleaded for mercy, and some openly admitted it, apologized, and seemed almost relieved. It hardly fit the image. Of course, the outcome didn't change for either of them. Treason was treason. The executions were conducted right afterwards, with no delay as no appeal time was granted. The two of them hadn't been present for that part. Instead, their steward gave them a lesson about all the paperwork that came with such a trial, as well as some pieces of it to work on. By the time the group sat in the shuttle back to the Star Palace, the day was already about to end. Currently, they all sat there in silence while the princess looked at her datapad, checking the work the two had done in the trial's aftermath. Decent, she eventually commented. Lady Philippine, you made some minor formality errors, but nothing big. That's something that'll come with experience. But Raccoon, your work was, less satisfactory. Philippine could see her brother's tense, as she herself, even though she wasn't the one criticized, shared the feeling. The displeasure in Her Highness's voice was audible. What had he done wrong? As far as she recalled, he had gotten a lot of praise in his previous tasks at the palace. What was wrong about it, your Highness? He asked in a panicked voice. Multiple things, for example, stating that some got sentenced on testimony alone isn't exactly accurate, considering the evidence we had on top of that. Calling the list unverified is also untrue. I've never dictated those things, he desperately pleaded. I know, but it's written here nonetheless, because I told the servant to try and sabotage you. Philippine's brain needed a while to catch up with the last sentence, and even then, she was sure she had misheard. Her brother couldn't even close his mouth, only staring in disbelief. Your work isn't lost, don't worry. He also made a correct version. But imagine you wouldn't have had been reporting to me, but acting on your own. Imagine this would have been your orders to someone or something like that. How long do you think it would have taken for you to find out? How much damage do you think could have been done? Would you have even noticed it all? The two were still frozen in place when Her Highness put the datapad away and leaned back. That may seem a bit mean, but it is something you need to keep in mind. You will be a fuke. You can't allow yourself to be manipulated. Not everyone around you will be someone you can trust, as today's trial hopefully demonstrated. Her words were harsh, but she wasn't wrong. It was likely the main reason why the other ducal clans expected Ryler to fall once he claimed his inheritance. Could Lady Nadine's strange ideas really help him? He had sounded pretty excited when he had told Philippine about it, even though she hadn't really understood most of it. Welcome back, the headmaid greeted them as they left the shuttle. Mahita, if Philippine remembered correctly. Your Highness, Lady Nadine wishes to speak. She has news for you. Thank you. Do you know what it is about? Yes, though I believe she wants it to be the one to tell you. That sounded odd to Philippine, but she didn't voice it. Instead, she let Raccoon grab her right arms and guided them through the halls as they followed the princess to Lady Nadine's chambers. And that's for they could hear her voice coming through the slightly open door. Damn it! I swear by the first ones, I'll get you one day. Well, I would normally say something like, then better don't slack, but considering the fact that the first time you did after waking up was to call me and demand a game, I'd say that you got that covered. But you're getting better. Anyway, gotta go. The next game should be done soon. I can't wait. The princess opened, and Philippine could see the alien put the datapad away and stand up. So, Your Highness, good evening. Likewise. You wanted to talk? Lady Nadine nodded in a way that looked almost enthusiastic. General Merton sent a message. Admiral, the princess corrected. Yes, that. Anyway, they'll be here tomorrow. Do you know what that means? It means that we can accelerate our schedule, she confirmed as she turned to the two. It seems tomorrow will get busy. And with that, she left, leaving the two alone with Lady Nadine, who gestured for them to take a seat. Philippine led her brother over to the chairs. So, how was the trial? She asked somberly. The two recounted their day, excluding what they had learned during the shuttle flight back. Raccoon didn't seem to want to talk about it, so Philippine kept quiet as well. Instead, they ended with executions. Then, though they hadn't seen them themselves, during that part, Lady Nadine seemed to shift in her seat for some reason. I heard about it, she ultimately said. They'll be thrown into space, right? Yes, Philippine affirmed. The law demands that no part of them will ever touch Humne again. The alien got quiet. She could get quiet to a degree that almost felt uncanny. Out of curiosity, she eventually asked, would nobles in the same situation be treated differently? Naturally, Raccoon answered without hesitation. Lady Nadine's facial features shifted to a degree that made them almost look distorted. It changed so fast it startled Philippine. Her brother, oblivious to it, kept talking. After all, nobles always represent their clans, so their actions reflect on them. Clan members can easily be suspected and as accomplices. A noble committing a crime as severe as treason wouldn't get doomed themselves. Depending on their circumstances, they might cause the downfall of their clan. And just as sudden as the last change, her facial expression was more like it had been before again. "Oh," she said, "that's what you meant." Rykon tilted his head, looking confused. "Yes, our human nobility treated differently." "Remember what you told us," Philippine reminded him. "All right. I apologize, Lady Nadine." "It's fine. It's a foreign concept to you, so you have a hard time wrapping your head around it. It was similar for me, though in reverse, obviously. But now that you mention it, I can't recall hearing about anyone actually getting charged with treason in my country during my lifetime." "I see. Well, a high noble being found guilty of severe crime doesn't just affect their clan, though." He continued his explanation, reciting their lessons almost verbatim. "They can have a rather wide impacts on the standing of lots of different parties, like the execution of the son of the clan Gatry for harming the prince." Lady Nadine blinked. "With prince, do you mean Kaeton? Yes? Is there another prince? No, but when did that happen? I'm not sure. I think we heard about it about 60 days ago." "Yes," Philippine confirmed. "It was right before the rainy season started. Have you not heard of it? Many, not just the ducal clans, but also a lot of counts were quite unhappy with how the matter was handled." "No, I haven't heard of it. Please enlighten me." End of chapter. I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, Manathayria, 050, Dragzoon W.R.E, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.